Hello everybody and welcome to the weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. This is of course taken from the Oricon website. To get the top 10 individual volume sales, I take a look at the light novel work as well as the paperback and literary book lists. As well, in this list, I'll be covering the top 10 best-selling series of the week. Now, unfortunately, Oricon does not post the actual sales numbers for that, so I don't have that information available. I'll be telling you how many the individual volumes sold, but if you want to look at the number for yourself, that'll be in the description down below. This is for the week of May 31st to June 6th. We're always about a week behind just because it takes them time to get all of this stuff tabulated. So let's jump right into it. At number 10, with 4,797 copies sold, this one was on the list last week, and that's Volume 5 of The Detective is Already Dead. You Will Be My Assistant. During a plane hijacking 4 years ago, Kimitsuka Kimihiko wound up becoming the assistant to a beautiful detective named Siesta. The pair traveled the world solving crimes and battling criminal organizations. Until Siesta died, anyway. Kimitsuka thought that would spell the end of his adventures and a return to ordinary life, but an encounter with a girl who bears an uncanny resemblance to Siesta suggests that fate has other plans. So this series seems to be doing pretty well. Again, this has now been licensed by Yen On. The first volume is supposed to be releasing later this month, and we also are supposed to be getting an anime of this one beginning in July. So overall, I think this is a series that looks pretty cool and definitely seems to be doing very well. At number 9, with 5,043 copies sold, this one was a big seller last week. Obviously, it looks like most of the people who were dying for this one picked it up then, and that's volume number 1 of The Founder of Diabolism. Jian, the state of immortality that all cultivators strike to achieve. However, there is a dark energy that lies underneath, the forbidden Modao, or demonic path. Through an unfortunate series of tragedies, this is the path that cultivator Wei Wujian experiments with during his teachings. His rise in power is accompanied by chaos and destruction, but his reign of terror comes to an abrupt end when the cultivation clans overpower him and he is killed by his closest ally. 13 years later, Wei Wujian is reincarnated in the body of a lunatic and reunited with Lan Wangji, a former classmate of his. This marks the beginning of a supernatural mystery that plagues the clans and threatens to disrupt their everyday life. Mo Dao Zu Shi follows these two men on their mission to unravel the mysteries of the spiritual world. Fighting demons, ghosts, and even other cultivators, the two end up forming a bond that neither of them had ever expected. So, as I discussed last week, now this is actually a Chinese novel. Last week I had Korea on the brain for some reason. Don't ask me. Probably I've watched a lot of Korean TV shows lately. That's probably why. But in any case, this is a Chinese series. This is now the light novel paperback adaptation of that series. It's always also had like an anime as well. So it also looked like it did receive perhaps like a hardcover edition that wasn't in the light novel style at some point in Japan. Just taking a look at the kanji for this one on amazon.co.jp. So in any case, obviously they released volumes 1 and 2 in a nice paperback and light novel-ish look to them, so that seems to have been a big hit with fans of that. At number 8, with 5,055 copies sold, it's volume number 15 of She Professed Herself Pupil of the Wise Man. Now this one has been licensed for English release by 7 Seas, has not released yet. The isekai fantasy tale of a young man sucked into another world where he must role-play an old man in a young woman's body, and it's also getting an anime as well. Sakamore Kagame was one of the top players in the VR MMO Arc Earth Online as Danblif, a veteran summoner with the gravitas to match his elite status. When he falls asleep playing one day, he's transported to a world where the game is reality, but instead of his all-powerful avatar, he's stuck in the body of a cute young girl. He can't let anyone know that this little cutie is really Danblif, so he takes the name Miya and claims to be Danblif's disciple. If this gets out, he'll never live it down. So, as I said, this one is getting an anime. It's also has been licensed by 7 Seas, both the manga adaptation as well as the light novel. Those will be coming out shortly from 7 Seas. This one, I believe the sort of part of the joke of it, if you will, is that I think he made this female avatar as a joke, if I'm recalling right. I think somebody told me this, I may be wrong, but that he had made this female avatar at the prodding of people, and he was just using it for kicks when he fell asleep, and that's why he finds himself now in the body. But again, I'm not 100% certain on that one. At number 7, with 5,315 copies sold, it's volume number 2 of, and pardon my pronunciation here, Futsutsuka na Akujo de wa Gozaimasu ga, Mia cho tori ka den. Don't really have an English translation of that very well. To train the one who would become the next empress, the eldest daughters from 5 houses were gathered. House of Ko's maiden, Ryouriban, who possessed a frail constitution and was beautiful as a butterfly, had the highest prospects to be selected. Out of jealousy, Keigetsu swaps their bodies. Ryouriban had suddenly become Keigetsu, who was hated by those around her and called the maiden court sewer rat. Now scorned by those who had previously treated her with kindness, and with no one to believe her, she is placed in harsher circumstances compared to before. However, I'm not short of breath, and no longer feel faint. What a wonderfully healthy body! How enviable! Having been accustomed to receiving the envy of those around her, and constantly fighting face to face with death, she possessed an iron will. So kind of a body swap story, which is a little bit interesting. And again, it kind of the whole idea that because she's been treated with envy and her body's been so frail and everything else, now that she's in this new body, she's like, boo-hoo, I can do what I want because there's no expectations and I'm healthy as an ox. So kind of an interesting take, sort of like not an isekai, obviously, because it's her world, but kind of another level of the whole court politics and everything else. This could be a really cool series. I'm going to keep my eye on this one. At number 6, with 5,640 copies sold, it is Volume 7 of Deokure Tamer no Sonohigurashi. Translated to A Dilatory Tamer's Slow Life. Yuto starts the popular VR MMORPG and logs in by selecting the profession Tamer that uses monsters. However, Tamer is an unpopular occupation that was considered unsuitable for offense by the beta test. As expected, Yuto was assigned a monster without any combat power and died 3 times in the first 5 minutes of the game. In a situation where adventure remains untouched, he decides to select a different profession to take advantage of the characteristics of monsters. Things do not exactly go as he wished, and so Yuto passes a slow life as a tamer with lovely monsters at his own pace for the time being. Now, I don't know if lovely monsters, is this a harem with monster girls kind of thing, but combining the whole VR MMORPG trope? I'm really not too sure. Don't know much about this one. If you know anything about it, hey, feel free to comment in the comments down below. At number 5, with 6,183 copies sold, Volume 12 of Cook of the Mercenary Corp. Azuma Shuri, a young man who aspires to be a chef, was transported to another world one day. There, the one who gave him a place to stay was the leader of a mercenary corps, Gungrave. While serving as an errand boy, Shuri gradually improves his cooking skills, demonstrating his worth as a cook. His food even manages to get through to each of the squad leaders who have their own preferences. Besides that, he also helps out with engineering, lending an ear to their woes and love worries. Eventually, Shuri became an indispensable ally of the Mercenary Corps. However, he still did not know then that he himself was going to become a hero. So, Volume 12, obviously a series that's been ongoing a while, another isekai fantasy-ish. I don't really know much else outside of this one. I used to do the top 10 a while back, and I remember this one actually being, like, obviously earlier volumes of this one being on the list, so seems like a pretty popular ongoing series. At number 4, with 6,613 copies sold, volume number 14 of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. So obviously this one currently has a second season of its anime airing. I think I just saw somewhere that it's like a shorter core and they've actually finished, but I don't know. This one is licensed for English release by J-Novel Club. In the MMORPG Cross Reverie, Takuma Sakamoto is so powerful that he is lauded as the Demon Lord by other players. One day, he is summoned to a world outside his own, but with the same appearance he had in the game. There, he meets two girls who both proclaim themselves to be his summoner. They perform an enslavement ritual to turn him into their summon, but that's when Takuma's passive ability, Magic Reflection, activates. Instead, it is the girls who become enslaved. Though Takuma may be the strongest sorcerer there is, he has no idea how to talk with other people. It is here he makes his choice, to act based on his persona from the game. Amazing? But of course, I am Diablo, the being known and feared as the Demon Lord. So begins a tale of adventure with an earth-shakingly powerful Demon Lord, or at least someone who acts like one, taking on another world. So like I said, this one licensed for English release by J-Novel Club. They are actually caught up to the Japanese releases. They've released all 13 volumes. This one they're also releasing in both ebook and print. It's a pretty racy-ishy harem series, well, I'm pretty sure you got the whole part when he enslaves two girls right out of the gate. You probably had an idea where this was going. At number 3, with 7,663 copies sold, volume number 4 of The Villainess is changing her role to a BroCon. Oh man. This one's not licensed for English release. Brother, I loved you since before I was born. Corporate slave Yukimura Rina was reincarnated as the villainess Ekaterina from an otome game. In her past life, she was obsessed with the brother of the villainess, Alexei, but seeing him in real life is so much better than in the game. It's just that her brother's upbringing is just so sad that she cries every time she thinks about it. Okay, I'm going to escape mine and my country's destruction flag and make sure everyone lives happily. Thus, the villainess from the prestigious 400-year-old Urinova dukedom, along with her sharp-tongued tendencies back when she was a corporate slave, forged on forward. With her common sense and knowledge of history, she plans on saving her brother and overcoming all the game events. But for some reason, as time went by, her talented brother became more and more of a syscon. Wait, no, he was a syscon to begin with. But she's more than happy to spend more time with her brother as a BroCon and syscon. And as time went by, her plan to avoid the heroine and the prince death flag has become more and more messed up. Why? No. The two of them are good people and good friends. But Prince, stay far, far away from me. Even so, the settings of the otome games she played before are completely messed up in this world. Nothing is the same. Anyways, the evil villainess Ekaterina will do her best for the sake of her brother. I mean, what do you say? It's a BroCon villainess, like the title pretty much tells you everything you need to know. But it just kind of shows you that the whole reincarnated as a villainess in Otome type games, it's still going strong as a sub-genre of the isekai. At number 2, with 14,971 copies sold, it is One Piece novel Heroines. The One Piece novel Heroines series, which is being serialized in One Piece magazine, has been made into a book, a collection of short stories about the female characters appearing in One Piece as the main characters. Includes episodes not seen in the main story, such as Nami, who appears in a fashion show, Robin, who helps to decipher stone plates with koalas and sabbats, Bibi, who has rumors in love letters, and Perona, who competes with Mihawk for wine. Don't miss the fashionable illustrations that depict the charms of the heroines. I love Japanese descriptions. They just got it. The fashionable illustrations. So obviously, One Piece, I'm not going to go over it. This series is massive, ongoing forever, and yeah, this often happens with One Piece. They get spin-off light novel series. There was one I know that was like a prequel series, and then in a lot of cases what seems to happen, and even with that prequel series, is that there's a One Piece magazine that runs these short stories, and so either it runs the a series as like a serialized set of stories or short stories, and then they ultimately collect them together into a book. Sometimes they do have some bonus material to make it more of a collector thing, or they include illustrations from the actual creator of One Piece. There's just different things like that they do to create sort of, well, to get more money, let's be honest. And hey, it works. Almost 15,000 copies sold. And finally, at number 1 for the individual volume sales of this week, we have volume number 5 of Higehiro. After being rejected, I shaved and took in a high school runaway. This one sold 22,146 copies. Now, this is very notable because this is actually the last volume of the series, so it ends at volume 5. Now, the manga for this series has been licensed for English release, but the light novel has not. And there is currently an anime based on the series running. I don't know, I haven't watched the anime, so I don't know how many volumes it's going to cover. Given that this last volume is releasing before the anime actually finished its run, I kind of wonder if they're going to tie it up the same way that the book is, because they probably knew what that information was before the anime finished, but I don't know. 26-year-old Yoshida is an employee at a major IT company. He meets a high school girl on his way home after drinking. Yoshida's crush had decisively rejected him after he pined for her for 5 years, and he decided to drink away his sorrow. Sayu, the runaway high school girl he meets, says they could sleep together if he lets her stay with him. Yoshida's having none of it, but he lets her stay with him anyway. So, admittedly, the title and stuff makes this sound very creepy, but I have it on good authority from a number of people that the series is a lot more wholesome, and that their relationship is a lot less creepy than what it sounds. It'll be interesting to see, since the anime is already done, and now the series is done, it'll be interesting to see if this actually gets licensed by anybody. I would say that since the manga has been picked up and it's not even out yet, that perhaps raises the chances of it happening. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Now we move on to the top 10 series sellers of the week. Again, this May 31st to June 6th. Of course, a lot of these I'm not going to talk too much about because they are ones that I just finished talking about because they're individual volumes were enough to pop them onto this list. Now, this list is not just made up of a single volume, obviously. This is sales for the series in its entirety. And I do believe that also includes manga adaptations. So there's a lot more to this than just the volumes of the light novel from what I can see when I'm looking at Oricon's website. In any case, at number 10, Cook of the Mercenary Corp. So, no big surprise, the sales performance of that volume was enough to get this into the top 10 bestsellers of the week. At number 9, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. Again, pretty obvious about why this one's here. At number 8, 86. Now yes, this one did not have a new volume come out that was in the top 10 best-selling light novel volumes of the week, but this one has had an anime airing that seems to have been doing pretty well, and it certainly seems to have done a decent job of helping the sales of 86 because it's been on this list for several weeks now. At number 7, The Detective is Already Dead. Again, not too surprising, the most recent volume's actually been on the list for a couple weeks in the volumes list, and then of course the series itself has occupied this. And I imagine because the anime is coming soon, I imagine there are some people who are probably picking up the earlier volumes so that they can kind of get ahead of the anime. I know people do that in English, so I imagine that's probably along the same lines of what we see in Japan as well. At number 6, the Villainess is changing her role to a BroCon. That title will always make me laugh. At number 5, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. So again, another series that has a number of volumes as well as several manga spin-offs, and of course several seasons now of anime, as well as like the slice of life, more comedy anime series that's based on the manga spin-off. There's a whole bunch of stuff, and really I mean, this is just a series that's really done well, not just because of the popularity of the light novel itself, but obviously because of all the other media associated with it. At number 4, The Founder of Diabolism. So again, I'm kind of thinking that even though only the first volume was in the top 10 individual volumes, and even though of course its sales were significantly less than the week before, there were 2 volumes released at exactly the same time, so I would imagine that with volume 1 and volume 2 combined, that is helping to drive the sales of this one. It certainly seems like, yeah, a lot of people were very excited about the release of this in paperback. I confess I've never heard of it, so I really don't know. At number 3, The Apothecary Diaries. Now, this one is licensed for English release from J Novel Club. The second volume just came out recently. Again, another series much like, say, 86 and such. Like, this one did have a new volume a couple weeks ago, which did very well in the top 10 individual volume sales. I kind of think, though, that this just seems to be a series that's really driven by its popularity. And I mean, it does have a number of volumes as well as like a fairly longer running manga. So there is lots of material that people could be buying that would be boosting the sales. Also, just to be honest, even if you take a look at the sales numbers of the list of the individual volumes this week compared to last week, I mean, there were a number of volumes that were doing 5-digit sales, not so much, only the top 2 this week. So again, I kind of wonder if that's sort of like an overall effect, just popular the series, still some interest carrying over from the most recent volume, as well as the fact that it does have fairly lengthy, like the light novel series is into the double digits of volumes, and the manga as well. At number 2, we have One Piece. Not a huge surprise. A, given the sales of the light novel, and B, the fact that there's well over 100. Oh my god, there's probably way more than 100. I don't even know how many volumes there are of the manga, but if they're including manga sales in this as well as all the spin-off light novels and everything else, I mean, I'm surprised this one doesn't take the top place in light novel series every single week, but I guess maybe they're only letting it be in the list because it had a recent light novel series release. I don't know. And then finally at number 1, Higehiro. After being rejected, I shaved and took in a high school runaway. Again, all being driven by the sales of that final volume as well as the sales of the earlier volumes coinciding with the anime and everything else. Not a huge surprise given the notoriety. And I imagine too that because it was well publicized that this was the final volume, that volume 5 was the end, I imagine that a lot of people who maybe were humming and hawing about the series decided to maybe binge it, or because of the anime they were kind of like, well, you know, I don't know if the anime is going to cover all of it, and it's only 5 books, so it's not a massive commitment. I imagine there's a lot of things at play here that are really driving the sales of this series to make it the top of the top 10. So those are your top 10 best-selling series and best-selling individual volumes for light novels in Japan the week of May 31st to June 6th. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about some of the series that I've talked about in this video? Leave all that in the description down below. And you know what? If you like this series of videos, make sure you give this one a thumbs up. Make sure you leave some comments. Make sure you subscribe because I'm going to put this up every single week, so you don't want to miss one if you're liking it. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Until then,